Sean Austin, CEO and co-founder here at Markets EQ. We've spent a lot of time, resources, and focus on how we can elevate and really actually eliminate risk from key communications. So risk can be risk models for asset managers when you're building understanding around leadership, but it also can be a risk if you're communicating. The whole idea, it actually came from a conversation with a Goldman quant long ago, was there's so much time and energy spent on the language part. A lot of it was like, right, the technology was sort of there. Voice was lagging, voice is compute heavy, but a lot of people think about voice because it's connected, right? We're like literally doing it at the exact same second when we're speaking. So he had said to me, if you can do voice, that would be the holy grail for us as a systematic firm, because we want to access this. And as like ChatGPT didn't exist years ago, I guess, but as soon as that was really clear, about 18 months ago, it was August of 2023, we started Markets EQ because we knew, my co-founder and I, we knew in team that if you take the Blade voice data, just like you can make factors on it, you can have the AI actually interpret it. So it was sort of clear to us there was going to be a world of AI analysts. And then we thought, well, why not AI voice enabled analysts or voice specific analysts, right? And that's really what we have available today. There's a language component to our platform for the buy side. There is a voice component now to the platform. So you're seeing it first. And then there is what you're actually seeing right now on the screen. There's a corporate view. So if you're actually on the corporate side, right, the issuer side, you can use this as a proxy to understand how your communications could be interpreted out in the wild. So that's, we could do the corporate one, but I'm going to focus on the two buy side pieces. So it's like research. Think of AI research, just like Perplexity lets you do it with FactSet content. We have that kind of transcript piece to it with a little voice, and then we have a voice piece now with a little language in it. So we're trying to continually fuse the two together. So a lot of time has been spent on language, right? So I sort of we'll just put a pin in that. On the voice part, I mean, we've seen systematically quite some gains on portfolios, right? You can think of like 20-25% gains at Sharpe ratios are possible, which is pretty insane when you think about it. On top of just language models, I had mentioned other companies now are bringing out factors on voice. So clearly there's alpha in sort of a systematic way. When you think of like qualitatively understanding it, it's really the idea is like you are communicating in a way, right? The words are more drafted and more controlled. So if you're speaking with someone in a Q&A section, everyone I've ever asked who's been an analyst on these calls says the same thing. It's like they're trying to hear, right? Literally listen to see if you sound a little different. So it's kind of at a super high level. We're trying to layer on those highlight those differences, and you'll see that in the voice report. It's does this look or sound, I should say, but does this sound different than the past? And then you get to read qualitatively those insights.
Oh, that's interesting.
The two features that like separate us now, because I would say, not to put my own product down, but I'd say everything you saw up to date is actually accessible in some other platforms that are, great platforms, I think. So it's hard to I think raise our hand and say you can't do that anywhere else, but you need that, right? It's kind of like that's why those exist. The next two features, so this and voice, I don't think are available anywhere, and we know that they're required, basically to get deeper insights and value. So this one, before voice, like where we want to end, is a trend analysis. So if I click all the earnings, right, trailing 3 earnings on top of the latest, what the system can do now, which is what we launched, fall of last year. So it hasn't been out that long. So it's a little gnarly work to do, but it's basically taking the report you just saw. So kind of the unique insights, that baseline. It's taking the transcript. It's taking a little bit of voice again. This is more language, a little bit you'll see, but it's then driving it through the AI to look across time. So if I click this buy side option, right, issuer buy side, and then I let this run, it's actually using the best in class models from Google because of our partnership. So this is Gemini 2 Pro. It's like best state of the art for any benchmark, but it's driving everything through it, which is really very unique from what I've seen. And it basically came from, we got asked that over and over and over. Like, this is great, I can see one, but what I care about is a trend. How is this thematically changing? What's happening over time? Totally made sense to us. Like you can see a little bit of voice over here. But it's pretty wild to say that the AI, if you do some of these techniques, like, which is what makes this, again, unique and a little harder to do, is it can actually do these. It can look across all that analysis and all those transcripts and build these like longitudinal trend reports, right?
Oh, wow.
This is totally the AI crawling a lot of stuff, and it comes out with these key themes, right? And if I scroll down, it can even pop out items more aligned with an investment thesis. So, right, it can be like corroborative, it can obviously be contradictory, but that to us is a very powerful capability. And if I go a little bit lower back to the language, it highlights from all those calls now it is running a level of sentiment analysis, but then taking that to the next level to identify these top positive and top negative statements, which again are highlighting, right? It's highlighting what the AI believes, right, is the most important from the data that it has available.
Gotcha. And this is sort of combining, like you said, with the text and the audio.
So this part isn't yet. So this is the voice is just the graph here. So it's actually all language. So we're trying to think of it like a one-stop shop, and we can't separate them. So let's build a language side, again, a tiny bit of voice, so we're not separating them. And then what I'll show you in a second, we'll do what you said. It's taking the voice now and trying to drive out the differential. So I'll show you that in 2 seconds.
It's interesting you were talking about pulling factors or features from this kind of information, which has mostly been done on the text side of things.
Yeah, I mean, right, it's been, I don't know, better part of a decade for sure. The language has been drilled, so we just don't think you can avoid it. And now, hopefully, like I said, I think this is the only way you can get something like this with AI. And we also have the best models can get dropped in, so we're really trying to push what's possible with that technology.
Right.
But you need the content to do it. So that was kind of the aha moment for us. We're like, well, you need the FactSet content. We believe, right? We know you need the voice, and then also you need a layer of insights, and then you can do these like trend understanding. What we offer and what we built this on is a quantitative systematic data set. So it's again from FactSet. It has things like cadence of speaker. It has analyst coverage. It has global coverage. It's got 20 years of history. It's really this systematic blade set of data that lets us do anything on it. So we've done things like compressed it down into emotion classifiers and all these ways to understand voice, right? So the reason I bring that up is by taking that, you can essentially just like describe it. How do you understand it to an AI? And that's where you can start to use the power of an AI model to do what you'll see in a second, which is now take the language part with your understanding of voice, which has to be transformed, but it's this blade gigantic set that's being used, and we know it's got to it, right? And then if I click continue here, you'll see that we can make basically identify the differentials again. So we call them emotional peaks here. Trying to figure out the right term. It's a really interesting space of what you call things, but it's that idea again of exactly identifying what stands out. So if I click this, for instance, and just highlight it for a second, right? It's looking at the language again, but now really focus, as you can see, all these are voice metrics, right? These are emotion classifiers. These are the primary speaker or primary speech derivatives, arousal, valence, and dominance are how one thinks about sentiment for speech. So it's something that it's in the domain, right? It's sort of like the standard instead of a sentiment number. Like you make sentiment and emotions from valence, arousal, and dominance. But it's really, a lot of it's similar, a little bit different than text, but a lot of similarities where we're now trying to highlight what sounds the most different. We're building at the audio level, right? Related utterances from the CEO. So if I click out of here too, scroll for a second.
You can see that there's so differently.
when I talk to people,
just in general, when you're like really when you see it on the screen like that, I'm like, oh man,
it's crazy when you talk to an analyst who like knows the call, right? They're covering whatever, they're covering United, right? So they would know the leadership, or they're covering a different name and company, but they talk about it like that too. They're like, no, I just know when something's wrong, because it's like they're friends with him almost, right? And it's kind of like if you talk to your best friend. I mean, I think about this when we do talk about it internally. Like we know each other so well in our team that that we talk about it too, so we're focused on it. But you can almost go faster by just knowing someone's tone. Because it's like, how are you feeling today? And it's all right if you're not flying high one day, but it's like you can understand it so quickly. So
Right.
we,
And quantifying that as is pretty cool.
yeah, the guy who leads our sales team always talked about how critical it is for sales. If you think of how would it be if you tried to do these conversations only through text, and technically not a sales call, but like, right, if you have a call, if you're
Right.
just texting someone, it would be very hard. And we think about that a lot because, like, yeah, of course, you want to like meet people, and that gives you a different, even dimension. But the voice is obviously a component of how we understand somebody and their everything. So it's been always the weirdest statement to me that there's been all this work done in models, but for until recently, very, very, very minimal to any systematic understanding by the machines of your voice. It seems like that's a big
Right. No, it
problem.
does. That seems like it's
So, of course, people are optimistic about the future, and they're going to talk about being optimistic and delivering results, even though they have challenges. The fact that there's a slight nuance of underlying concern in their voice tone, right? Like it's different. There's these emotions detected. There's sort of like a change in their valence, right? It's not, of course, like this, like the stock's going to fall off a cliff or something, but it's this idea of understanding someone. The fact that you can't always listen to these, you don't know these speakers all the time, just like you and I have talked a few times, but we haven't talked 100 times. I mean, this starts to give you just like a deeper understanding of somebody, and we really think that's critical. It's like, why do the numbers matter, the fundamentals, when you have to go back in time and really understand them? It's because they're important. Just like we think understanding sort of their state of mind, understanding the behavioral component, and I would say it's very clear that it's got to be valuable because the language matters, right? And they're coupled. So the language matters, the choice of words matter, and certainly the voice tone matters.
right. Right. Yeah.
Once you build those, or really use the models to build these insights and take the data and interpret it, you can start to ask them just like ChatGPT style. You can ask anything. I think that's one of the coolest parts here that we just launched is take that information, look at these highlights we're doing out of the box, and then you can basically, right, again, ChatGPT style, go as deep as you want on it.
Yeah, that's so cool that you see sort of the difference, right? So compare the two.
Like there's been speech coaches for years and obviously consultants for years. So it's sort of just the next generation. And then obviously, like we've also is that there's language analysis. Analysts have been on these calls. Why not layer in another dimension of the leadership team and then ultimately understand it better, right?
Would you say it's like mostly started with systematic folks and it's expanding from there?
So definitely, at least from our end, I think ultimately it's actually more designed for non-systematics, right? I think what we understood is if you have to build this data to do these things, then why don't you try to monetize the data? So that is where we've got more traction. That's where we've started. That's where I've seen this competition start to come in, right? These other sort of products. But I think ultimately it's the qualitative, right? So I believe now the only ones in the world too who have any sort of qualitative AI based understanding of voice.
To me, I can see XYZ company reported today. This could be almost like another line in the earnings story, right?
Yep.
You're putting the qualitative thing in there. Oh, it was a little tense or something like that.
So the United one is actually why I picked it up. So NBC was the one who covered this earnings call the most, like press, and it was the statement that was detected from the voice insights as most angry in the prepared remarks was actually the one that NBC picked up, but not because we told NBC. It must have come across a little more to the report of the journalist. The AI detects it. You know, in that sense, angry actually was more like passion. It was about the system needing to be fixed out external to United. But so we looked at it like that's actually very corroborative.
Awesome.
Like you said, you have this. You could say it's not just my opinion, right? So it actually people perceived it as this, and then you can write your
Right.
story and stuff. But so I mean, quick answer on the screeners is we don't think that's going to be part of what we do and own. We want to work with people who are doing that. So we've got a couple pretty good discussions. One's a little bit deeper than that now on how we can build sort of those screeners or news clips around what we're doing. Like we're one piece of the puzzle, not like only a voice clip. So that's the same concept, right? We don't think we can build everything. So that one feels like a really good partner opportunity, and we hopefully can get that out actually in Q2. But it's a big request. We said you can show me the trends, you can show me the unique data and insights. Can you pick out the names, right? The calls that are most different, and we could technically, but we think the partner can do it even better.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, no, that's the thing with I feel like AI is like you're able to quantify things you're quantifying qualitative things at scale. which you couldn't really do before, right?
I mean, that's the company all the way back to the beginning. Like the origin of it is once I saw ChatGPT, like there'll be this report that you just saw. We actually could have built it 18 months ago. So everything we've been doing has been waiting for the models to catch up.